Shortly after the Shabbat Simchat Torah pogrom, Esther Marcus, a survivor of the massacre, penned this powerful poem. The angel of death knocked on my door. He tapped on my window, dipped his fingers into my food, ran his nails across my spine. I saw his reflection in the mirror. Not today, Esther. Not today. He moved on, dancing his distorted dance, roaring his evil laugh. He rounded up my neighbors, Nachal Oz, Be'eri, Nir Oz, Kfar Azar, filling his pockets with children, stuffing men, women, families into his backpack. He smiled his crooked smile at the soldiers who fought him and swooped them up with his fist. And I watched him go, discarding the shells of the souls he had taken. He turned and waved. Not today, Esther. Not today. Whilst I could say a lot about that poem, instead I want to focus on the angel of death, known in Hebrew as Malak Hamet. It is this terrifying angel who sweeps over Egypt, selecting the firstborn and leaving behind a devastating death toll. It has always choked me up that the notorious Auschwitz doctor, Joseph Mengele, who oversaw the selection at Birkenau, who with one heartless flick of his wrist sent babies to their death, was known with great trepidation as Malak Hamet. To those Jews pouring out of the cattle trucks at Auschwitz, Mengele was the angel of death. That title is especially sinister because when we hear the word angel, the first thing that is meant to come to our mind is not the master of death. Usually if we call someone an angel, it's because we see in them something virtuous and benevolent. Angels help. Angels swoop in to rescue those who are struggling. Angels are holy, maybe even saintly. The Hebrew word for angels is malachim, which translates as messengers. It sounds incredibly close to the Hebrew word for kings, melachim, but they derive from different Hebrew roots. Malachim, angels, comes from the root lach, to send, and melachim, kings, comes from the root melach, to rule or advise. You can hear how close they are. Lach, malach, malachim, melachim. And you can hear why people often amalgamate the two and describe angels as God's royal messengers. In Jewish literature, starting with the Hebrew Bible and stretching all the way to modern folklore, there are many, many angels, not just the Malak Hamet, the angel of death, but in particular, there are 4 archangels who surround the divine throne. Michael on the right, Uriel on the left, Gabriel in the front, and Raphael at the rear. Michael, meaning who is like God, has a flaming sword and is God's mighty warrior and protector. Raphael, meaning God has healed, holds a bottle of medicine, but he also carries a trumpet ready to announce God's judgment. Gabriel, meaning God is my strength, is the one who announces God's intentions. He is also the guardian of Israel. And Uriel, meaning light of God, is the master of wisdom and is often depicted carrying a book or a scroll. In this week's Torah portion, angels feature heavily. According to the Talmud, 3 of those archangels are those 3 mysterious visitors who appear on the plains of Mamre and are welcomed by Abraham. Michael, as the greatest, walks in the middle, with Gabriel to his right and Raphael to his left, and each was commanded to carry out a specific mission. Michael to inform Sarah that she would give birth to Isaac, Gabriel to destroy the wicked of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Raphael to heal Abraham from his recent self-circumcision at the sprightly age of 99. Raphael, the healer, had yet a further mission: to rescue Lot, Abraham's errant nephew. And as we know, Abraham ran to greet these messengers, and after a warm welcome, each of them delivers their tidings. But that is not the end of the angels in this week's Torah portion. 2 of those heavenly messengers, dressed as ordinary men, race to Sodom. Their story is a terrifying one. The townsfolk of Sodom are brutal. They hate strangers. Now Lot offers these men, these strangers, a bed for the night. But the townsfolk of Sodom gather around the house, threatening to murder and rape these strangers. How frightening familiar that feels. How similar to events 4 weeks ago. However, the men of Sodom have picked on the wrong people. The angels reveal themselves, and they blind the people of Sodom with brilliant light. Now, according to the Talmud, angels are created with holy fire, and that is what they unleash on Sodom and Gomorrah. But the angels are not finished their work this week. Twice more they appear in our Torah portion. The first occasion is when Abraham sends Hagar and Ishmael into the desert to their likely death. As Matt read for us, Hagar ran out of water, another rather topical issue. Hagar, unable to bear watching her son die from thirst, leaves him under a thorn bush and sits a little way off, weeping. Suddenly an angel appears, showing Hagar a hidden well from which she draws water and saves her son and herself. And then 2 chapters later, we read the famous Akedah. As we know, just at that critical moment when Abraham is about to sacrifice his son Isaac, an angel appears from heaven and stops him in his tracks. Abraham, Abraham, lay not your hand upon the lad. And rabbinic literature suggests that it is the very same angel who saves both Ishmael with the well and Isaac on the mountain. And it is this very same angel who then appears a final time, promising Abraham that his descendants will be blessed and as multiple as the stars of the heaven and the sand at the shores of the sea. Back to the here and now. The descendants of Abraham are at war. Where are the angels who are going to resolve this? Where are the angels who will rescue the hostages like they rescued Lot? Where are the angels, especially the archangels, who can counter the Malak Hamet, the bloodthirsty angel of death who has appeared, this time in Jewish history, in the guise of Hamas? Where are the angels who can pull us back from the abyss, just as they stayed the hand of Abraham in the very moment he was overcome with fanatical faith? Clearly, there are no malachim, there are no angels coming, but we have received their message loud and clear. Shin Shalom was the pen name of Shalom Joseph Shapira, an acclaimed 20th century Israeli poet who died back in 1990. Shin Shalom was born in Poland, raised in a famous Hasidic family, and he moved to the Holy Land in 1922 when he was just 18. I want you to imagine what Shin Shalom must have witnessed in his lifetime. The Chalutzim, those pioneers who turned the land of Israel from a desert into an oasis. The Shoah, the birth in 1948 of the fledgling state of Israel. The many wars between 1948 and his death. And I think that is why, towards the end of his life, full of despair about the ongoing conflict, he penned this beautiful poem inspired by this week's Torah portion and delivered through the mouth of Isaac. Ishmael, my brother, how long shall we fight each other? My brother, from times bygone. My brother, Hagar's son. My brother, the wandering one. One angel was sent to us both. One angel watched over our growth. There in the wilderness, death threatened you through thirst, whilst I, a sacrifice on the altar, Sarah's first. Ishmael, my brother, hear my plea. It was the angel who tied thee to me. Why should we blind each other's eyes? Let us be brothers. Brother, arise. The heat of the desert has narrowed our mind. Our common grazing ground we cannot find. Time is running out. Put hatred to sleep. Shoulder to shoulder, let's gather our sheep. Shin Shalom reminds us what Hamas, the modern Malak Hamet, wants us to forget, that we are all the descendants of Abraham, that we are all children of the same God. Sadly, there are no angels coming to rescue us, but we must not despair. We must become like those good archangels, strong like Michael, resilient like Gabriel, bringing light like Uriel, and healing like Raphael. And we must take on the Malak Hamet. We must struggle with all our heart and soul and might, just like Jacob did long ago with yet another angel when he refused to let go until the break of a new dawn. And only then, in that moment of exhaustion, like Jacob, we will become Yisrael, the one who wrestles with angels and people, yet endures and prevails. Shabbat Shalom.